Hi, it's Peter from Teach Me Maths, and welcome to another video to help you to pass the QTS Numeracy skills test. This one today is on rounding, and as usual I'm going to keep this specific to the QTS test. So if I was teaching a GCSE student about rounding, we may have to go into a few other different things like significant figures, for instance, but I've never seen a QTS question asked about that, so I'm going to keep it very specific to the stuff that's coming up in the QTS test. And if I just give you a quick preview of some of the questions we're going to look at, we've got a question here that says give your answer to the nearest krona. We've got a question here that says give your answer as a decimal to one decimal place, and I've got a couple more. Okay, but before I do that, I just want to set this up by just really putting some numbers on the screen and rounding them and giving you some real simple kind of ideas of how to kind of see whether your answer looks right or not. So let's say, and look, the numbers I'm going to put on the screen are fairly kind of random. Well, they're very random because I'm literally making them up now. So here we go. Let's say we did a calculation, and obviously this is on the calculator. You get something on the calculator. It was 2.7689 and a whole bunch of other decimal places. Okay, so really the three different things that you might be asked for in QTS would be to round this number to one decimal place, two decimal places, or probably a whole number. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the three answers in first and then explain them. So this one would be 2.8, okay, this one would be 2.77, and this one would be 3. Okay, so they're the three answers. Okay, so let's put a bit of explanation onto what's going on here. Okay, when you look at the first one decimal place, okay, what that means then is that we need one digit after the decimal place, okay, whereas two decimal places we need two digits. Now, to most of you that probably seems fairly obvious, but I have seen quite a few people make mistakes with this when the question asks for, say, one decimal place and they write the answer 2.77. So they've rounded it correctly, but they haven't quite, rounded it to the right number of decimal places. Okay, so make sure that your answer looks correct. Once you've written it down, does it look as if it's got one decimal place in it, or two decimal places in it, or even does it look like a whole number? Okay, I don't see people make mistakes with the whole number one too often. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on here then. Okay, when we round to 2.8, okay, we really are looking at this 6 here. Okay, this 6. Okay, if this is a 6, 7, no, sorry, let me start again. If that is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or a 9, then we're going to go up to 2.8. And probably the easiest way to show you why is to draw a number line. Okay, so if we've got 2.7 here and 2.8 here, okay, these are two possible answers to rounding a number to one decimal place. Okay, and our number is somewhere in between. Okay, now whereabouts in between is it? Well, I'm going to put it about here. Okay, so this is our 2.7689. Okay, now exactly where I put it is not too important. The important thing is that it's to the right of this line here, and this is going to be halfway between 2.7 and 2.8. Okay, so you've got a visual way of seeing why we would round it up to 2.8. Okay, so if the third digit here is a 5, 6, 7, 8 or a 9, it means that we're in this section of the number line, and therefore the nearest number that we could correctly round to would be 2.8. Okay, so little number lines here are really useful for doing rounding, and I'm going to do that again with the next one. Now, the easiest way for me to just clear that bit is just to undo all of that. The eraser on here is a little bit messy sometimes. Okay, so this time then we're going to do another number line. We're doing the two decimal place one. Okay, so this time when you look at this number, the two possible answers that we could think to write down are these two. Okay, because they've both got two decimal places in. And again, what you do is you go to the halfway mark. Okay, and halfway marks will always involve a 5. Basically copy this number on the left down and then simply stick a 5 on the end. That's the halfway mark. Okay, now when you look at our number, Okay, we're looking at a different digit this time. It's this 8 here. Okay, it's the third decimal place we look at, and again, if that is a 5, 6, 7, 8 or a 9, we're in this section here, and we would round up to 2.77. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of one that would round down to 2.76. Let's say it was 2.76439. Okay, so this time you would look at this digit. Well, sorry, I say this time, we're looking at the same digit, it's in the same place, but this time it's a 4. Okay, so if it's a 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4, it means we're in this section of the number line, and then the nearest number with 2 decimal places to that will be 2.76. Okay, so I would encourage you to try and use number lines, particularly if you're not too sure. When you're first learning this, use your number lines and make sense of it. Okay, now in terms of the whole number should be fairly easy. I actually like to kind of think of it as just a money question. If you look at that number of 2.7689, if you kind of ignore these digits here and just think, oh, it looks like £2.76, then it should be obvious that £2.76 is nearer to £3 than it is to £2. But again, you can do it as a number line. These are the two whole numbers that the number is in between. The halfway mark is 2.5. Okay, and clearly 2.76 is in this section here, so we round up to 3. Okay, I think if the number was closer to 2.5, I sometimes see a mistake with this, but not very often. Most people get the whole number ones fairly easily. Okay, but the halfway mark is what you should be looking at with these. Okay, so let's go and have a look at a couple of QTS questions and put that all together. Okay, so this is question 13 from one of the DFE tests. I can't remember which one. There actually are probably less rounding questions than maybe people would think. I went through the whole of DFE test 4, for instance, and there was only one question that required any rounding. Okay, so it is an important topic, but it's not something that you're going to need huge amounts, and it certainly doesn't come up in the mental maths. I've never seen a mental maths question that you would need to round. Anyway, let's move on and do this question fairly quickly. I want to keep this video fairly brief. Okay, now I'm not here to teach you how to do the actual scatter diagram and what the blue line is. I've got other videos that would teach you that. Basically this question would be, let's have a quick look. What proportion of the class have the same reading age as actual age? Well, that's these guys on the line. Okay, and we just count those up, nice and simple. It's 6 out of 21. The 21 is at the top, and you simply put 6 divided by 21 in your calculator. Okay, so if we do that, let me just do that on my calculator. You guys can do that and pause the video if you want to. Okay, so we get quite a long decimal, 0.2857 blah 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 blah. I wouldn't worry too much about writing more than 3 or 4 decimal places down, even if you're going to round it. Okay, so let's have a look what they want us to do. They want us to round this to 1 decimal place. Okay, so I'm going to use the number line. Okay, it means we're either going to round to 0.2 or 0.3. Okay, here's the halfway mark, which would be 0.25. Can you clearly see we're in this section? Okay, as I say, the alternative way to do that would just be to be focusing on the 8. Okay, and because that's bigger than a 5 or 5 or bigger, we're going to round this 2 up to a 3. So our correct answer here would be 0.3. Now, I just see the mistakes that I see are people just maybe tend to look at the wrong digit. Okay, or even some people just look at this digit and say, oh well, it's a 2, so I don't round up. No, it's not that. We don't even look at the 2. We look at the 8. It's the 8 that determines whether we round up or down. Okay, so we're actually rounding up here to 0.3. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Okay, so another question from one of the DFE tests from the second section. These can be quite tricky questions when people are first starting. Okay, but again, this video is not really here to teach you how to do the actual question. It's really to teach you how to round. Now, a very important thing about rounding is that, and a very common mistake is that people round stuff as they're going along. Okay, and you mustn't do that. You only ever round at the end. So I'm going to do this question, and I'm going to bring the calculator up on the screen. You're going to see that I won't do any rounding at all in this question until the very end. Okay, so in this question, let's just bring the calculator in. Okay, the correct method here, as I say, I'm not really going to explain this. I've got other videos that will explain how to do these questions, but the first step would be 350 divided by 32. That tells us how many gallons of fuel the minibus is going to use in this question. Okay, so it's 10.9375. So I don't know whether it's a lazy thing or whether people think it's a correct thing to do, but people tend to not write that whole number down. Okay, or you need to just be skilled at using the calculator in the right way so that you don't have to write that number down. Okay, but we need to use all of it. If you just use 10.9, you're in danger of going wrong in this question. Okay, and you definitely don't round it to like 10.94. You use all of it. Okay, so that's how many gallons of fuel we're going to use. We're going to need to turn that into litres, so we times that by 4.546. Okay, and again, look, we get an even longer decimal now, but I don't round it. Okay, so this is approximately 49.7 litres of fuel, but we need to use the whole number. Okay, and now we go and pay for it. It costs £1.13 per litre, and there you go, there's the final answer. Okay, now let's say this question didn't ask us to round it. Okay, what should we do? Well, you don't need to be asked to round this question because it's a money question. Okay, if you wrote all of that answer down, either in a GCSE exam or in a QTS test, you're not really showing the examiners that you actually understand what the heck your final answer is. Okay, so this is £56, and then we've got a load more digits. Okay, so let me just jot that number down: 56.1857, and again, the rest of the digits aren't really important here. Okay, now if this is money, okay, we can't leave our answer like this even if it didn't ask us to round it. Let's say I cross this bit out. If it just said what is the estimated fuel cost for the weekend trip and it doesn't mention rounding, you would still have to round it because it's a money question. You have to put sensible monetary answers. This would be the correct monetary answer if it didn't ask us to round it to the nearest pound. Okay, can you see what I did there? Look, this is a 5. It tells us to round the 8 up to a 9. Okay, so hoping that starts to make sense that you're looking at the correct digit. Okay, so what I've really done there is I've rounded it to 2 decimal places. You would always round to 2 decimal places when it's a money question. Okay, unless it actually tells you, and in this question it says give your answer to the nearest pound. Now again, you shouldn't really need any techniques or number lines here. Surely it's obvious that £56.19 is closer to £56 than it is to 57. Okay, you would need to be on £56.50 or above to round up to 57. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, so another question from the DFE test. Very similar to the last one really, because it's a money question and it asks us to round to the nearest pound. Okay, but I'm actually going to talk a little bit again about what we do throughout the question. Okay, because one of the main mistakes that people make with rounding is that they just round too early. Okay, I'm really trying to get it across to you guys is just don't touch the stuff until the very end. Okay, so I'm going to bring the calculator in, and these questions I tend to teach people to work out what the cost of one of these portfolios is for one person, and then we can multiply through by however many people we've got. It keeps it simpler, so you can kind of visualize this. You just personalize it, make it as if it's your portfolio, and think, well, what's this portfolio made of? Well, first of all, it's made of 75 printed pages, and they cost 2.5 pence per page. Okay, so we do a simple 75 times 2.5. Okay, don't try and turn that 2.5 into pounds and write it as 0.0025 because I just see too many people make mistakes with it. Okay, so 187.5. Now it's just important, all you've got to do is just be really clear what your units are. This is in pence. Okay, leave it in pence. Okay, we'll change everything at the end. Okay, so now we've got a ring binder. The price of the ring binder is in pence, so we add that on. Okay, again, don't change it to 0.75. Okay, because you're just creating problems for yourself. Okay, we add that on. This is how many pence it costs for one pupil. Okay, now again, a common mistake here is to go, oh okay, well I'll divide that by 100 and round it, it'll be £2.63. And if the question was for one pupil, then that would be a correct answer, but the question isn't for one pupil, it's for 125 pupils. Okay, so notice what I do. I don't touch the number, I leave it alone, and I times by 125. Okay, so this is the full cost in pence of all of the portfolios, and then you do a simple divide by 100 at the end, okay, and then you've got a monetary answer. Okay, let's jot that down. Okay, £328. Okay, and then we've got a 125 afterwards. Okay, now again, really for this question, let's go straight to the give your answer to the nearest pound. Okay, and it should again be fairly obvious that it's £328. Oh, sorry, that's not going to be the final answer. Sorry, I'm missing this part. I need to subtract the 250. Okay, let's just do that on the calculator. This is in pounds, so we subtract an amount in pounds, 78.125. Okay, now in terms of the rounding, exactly the same principle. Okay, if we go to the nearest pound, okay, clearly the answer is 78. Okay, but if you were doing this to an exact cost, again, you've got to round it. You can't leave your answer as 78.125. You can't have that in money, or not anymore anyway. So what do? This 5 tells us to round the 2 up to a 3. So it would be £78.13. And it is very important that you do that rounding. Even if the question, you might appear from the question that you don't need to do any rounding, but if it's a monetary question, you have to. Okay, and you won't be asked to do that. You just have to know to do that. Okay, let's do one more. This is another one from the DFE. There's a couple of similar ones here. It's a basic currency exchange question, but I think most people are just used to sort of dealing with maybe pounds to euros, where the exchange rate is quite a small number. So for instance, maybe £1 is 1.2 euros, something like that. If you look here, the exchange rate is £1 is a really large number of krona. It's 141.5 krona. Okay, and I just see people make mistakes with this, partly because they just don't expect their answer to be so big, but it should make sense that it's going to be a big answer. If £1 is 141 or over 141 krona, and we're going to exchange quite a large amount of money, then you're going to get quite a big answer to this. Okay, but let's bring the calculator in. It's a fairly simple question in terms of calculations. Okay, the first thing to say with this question is, look, it says each of the 25 pupils is allowed to take £40, but when you look at the question at the end, it doesn't ask for the amount of krona that all 25 pupils take. It says each pupil. Okay, so if it says each pupil, then really we don't care how many pupils there are. Okay, so this is a little bit of a red herring here. Okay, so let's do it. We've got £40. Okay, and it's a fairly simple multiplication. Okay, 141.5. Okay, we get 5,660 krona. It's a large number, but it's a correct number. Okay, now the thing with this question is there's a commission. Okay, the simple quick way of doing finding out your answer once you've paid a 1% commission is just to keep it nice and simple and think, right, if I'm paying a 1% commission, I get to keep 99% of the money. Okay, and if you get to keep 99% of it, 99% is a decimal, 0.99. Okay, so there's our answer. Okay, so 5603.4. Okay, now it's rounding again. It says give your answer to the nearest krona. Okay, the answer is 5603. Okay, again, I shouldn't need too much explanation there. If this was a 5, 6, 7, 8 or a 9, then we would cross this out and this would be 5604. Okay, but yeah, don't let the fact that it's krona confuse you and that it's a large number. Try to just do exactly what it really says. Okay, if £1 is a large number of krona, you're going to get quite a large number as your answer. Okay, and particularly if you did use the 25 at the top, okay, you would get a very large answer. Okay, well, let me just be clear on what I mean by that. Is in this particular question you don't need to use it, but if you did, you would obviously end up dividing by 25 at the end, so it would be fairly pointless to times by 25 at the beginning, only to divide by 25 at the end. Okay, and you should still get this same answer. But what I mean is if the question was a bit different and it did have a large number of people, you could get a very large number of krona here. Okay, but you shouldn't be surprised by that. I get too many students say, oh, it didn't look right. Okay, or it looked a bit big. Okay, no, look at this bit in here. It makes sense that the answer is going to be quite big. But actually, in terms of the rounding at the end, it's very, very simple. Okay, so hopefully that will help. Okay, and good luck with your QTS.